Hello, my friends. It's Andy over at Falco Canine Academy. I'm so happy to be here with you. As usual, it is a very hot day. So you're finding me here back inside the air-conditioned house because the studio is steaming hot. So I hope you don't mind. At least I got my at least I got my branding right here that tells you you're on the right page, Falco Canine Academy. And what we're going to be talking about is a question I got asked earlier, and I thought, well, that's actually pretty good because I got to go on anyway to talk about what we're going to do in regard to this dog that's coming in from Northern Ireland today. And I'm going to take you on the road with me from time to time. I'll be checking in on Facebook Live to kind of tell you what's happening. It is often an adventure. I wish I would have had a camera person with the team that I sent to pick up the last two dogs, because I'm telling you, it can be an adventure getting a dog here from Europe. I've had it all happen, and I could take up a whole 5-hour show just on shipping a dog here from Europe. And some of you would ask, well, is it worth it? If it's that much, if it's that much of a hassle, why wouldn't you just go to the Orange County Animal Shelter and pick up a dog and use it there? Or why wouldn't you just buy a dog in Riverside? There's tons of breeders in Riverside, and even in Mexico, there's dogs that come up here. Well, the thing that makes us different, I think, than a lot of other places is the dogs we select. Now, from time to time, we've gone to shelters and gotten dogs. They work, but sometimes we've had more issues with dogs that come from shelters because we have no idea what their history is. They may have been abused. They may have been there because of some deep-seated dog aggression that doesn't show up until later on, or with the right person. There's so many times that we get dogs, not so many times, but that has happened where we've gotten dogs here that in our hands never show any aggression, because I have a very strict regiment with the dogs. There's rules and boundaries. I've talked about that before. The dogs love me, but we're very sound in our training, and dogs understanding that there's certain things they can and cannot do, and they must love and respect me, and that is there's no other way. And so we won't see aggression quite often until they get into the hands of their new owners, where things kind of change. And we've seen some really, really bad aggression that has come out with dogs that never appeared when we had them, and that was always happened in regard to dogs we've gotten from a shelter environment. You also have health issues, and you have a bunch of other things that kind of come about by doing that. And there's nothing wrong. I have had some success with dogs at shelters, but it's so hard and can be so costly to get to that one that it makes way more sense to go to pay a couple $1,000s extra for a dog coming out of Europe that I know comes from a breeder who breeds specifically for the job that I'm teaching this dog to do. Sorry, lost breath there. And then I just have, it's just, there's less hassle. I have less times where I have to take a dog back and give them a different one. It happens, right? It's still going to happen because you have to make a relationship work between a human being and a dog, and it doesn't always work. It's not 100%, but I have fewer failures with dogs that I get. And I've gotten dogs from Mexico, some fantastic dogs from Mexico. So it's not that I wouldn't take a dog from Mexico. It is less hassle because somebody just simply has to drive it across the border. There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to say it. But there's just a lot. There's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get a dog from Mexico than it is to get it from Europe. So, but they're just harder to find. Again, it's a fairly large country that you have to scour to find the one dog that's going to pass all the tests. Again, it has to pass all the tests. I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen here in a minute. I'm going to show you some of the paperwork that has to go along with that dog. But what I want to talk about first is this issue in regard to aggression, which I got asked earlier while I was at lunch. Got a phone call. The question was, "Hey, we got an aggressive dog. In this case, it happens to be a pit bull, but it doesn't have to be a pit bull. Just in this story, that's what predicated this story." Now, one of the solutions, or a solution, and a very powerful solution, with our training, and what we tell all of our trainers, we teach our trainers and our handlers who have aggressive dogs, is that you need to get into the dog's brain. Quite often, most trainers are attacking, not attacking, they are addressing the aggression after it's happened. Right. So many trainers go, well, when your dog begins to bark, or when your dog lunges out, or when your dog bites, then do this. Well, that's too late. It is harder, and it takes longer. And the chances of success are lessened if you're waiting to correct the behavior after it's occurred. You are far more successful when you get into the dog's head and you correct the thought of aggression, not the actions of aggression. And it can be tough. Trust me, I've been doing this a very long time, and it's hard to pass on that technique from a trainer who's been doing it for 30 years to somebody who's simply just, I want my dog to stop, biting my children or the next door neighbor's children. And, I have other things. I'm an attorney, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a librarian, or whatever it is. Librarian? Do they still have librarians? I'm sure there is one somewhere, but that's their thing, right? And so you have to, okay, and what you need to do is recognize blah, 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 and then take action and be consistent. And it's hard, right? But if you have chosen to get a dog or maintain a dog or keep a dog that you find out has aggression, and you love that dog, then you have been chosen, and you need to understand the strategies and techniques behind helping a dog who has dog or human aggression, by understanding that you're going to have greater success by taking action when they're thinking about it, not when they're lunging, barking, growling, biting. All right. So how do you do that? Well, one of the things is most dogs cannot suddenly become aggressive without letting you know that they're going to become aggressive. So the best you can do in many cases are two things. One is recognizing when you're in a situation where your dog is about to be aggressive, right? So, if you're around your dog enough, when you hear, right, the wheels, the brakes on a postman, a male person's Jeep, that triggers your dog to go roar at the door, right? And chase her. That sound, right? The sound causes your dog to do X, right? Or when you hear the brakes on the UPS truck, or when you're walking your dog and you hear the distinct sound of a skateboard being ridden down the sidewalk, right? You hear that. Your dog probably hears it first, though. Let's just be honest, right? But I'm just giving you an example. So that then when that happens, then this happens. It's an automatic in many, many, many cases, right? And so that's the time, if you hear it before your dog, or before your dog then becomes aggressive, right? Sometimes the dog needs to hear it and they begin walking around the house like, okay, I'm getting ready, because at any moment he's ringing the doorbell. Well, what you want to do is correct the behavior at the moment you hear the squeal of the brakes. If your dog doesn't lunge out and bark and tear down the drapes, or scratch at the door like a maniac at the sound of the wheels, but you can see that he's like starting to breathe heavy, that's when you get in your dog's brain and say no, and you correct, or you take alternative action. Maybe you're using a treat to distract the dog, or to cause him to do something else, put his focus on something else. That's the time you do that, because now, again, what we want to do is get into the dog's thought process, not into the overt action of aggression. Because in many cases, those things are the first stage of the aggression, right? The heavy breathing is the next thing you recognize. The posture change, the twitching of the ears, the tail rising from a downward position to an upward position, the eyes maybe changing, the pupils changing. What else? Standing up straighter. Find it, canine. Yes, a new dog's coming. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. And so those are all those things that you see in a dog. All right. So the one secret to training an aggressive dog is understanding what those things are the dog does before the overt action of aggression. That is the secret, right? That is something that not a lot of trainers do. They may know it, but they don't train it because it's difficult, right? They want to, it's harder. It's kind of like, it's like believing in God, right? You've never seen him. Maybe you've seen his actions, or believe that, the sun rising and then going down, and that is God, right? But you cannot see him, right? But you have to believe. And it's hard. It's hard to teach people something they can't see if they don't already believe and have a belief. It's kind of that same thing with the dog. It's hard to describe and hard for them to correct because it's not something they can actually see. You have to either feel it or hear it, or in fact see some change in the dog's behavior before you do something about it. So what happens is, what I want you to understand, the secret is understanding all those things that happen before the aggression, and try to correct the dog at the moment, at the first breath that leads into the rapid breathing. At the moment the tail begins to rise before it rises, right? To correct the dog mentally in his head when his pupils begin to change, not after they've changed, right? So the secret is, if you can do that, if you can get into your dog's psyche by recognizing not only the things that trigger it, the outside, the external stimulation that causes the aggression, but also because he may hear it before you, because remember, they can hear a field mouse 100 yards away, right? They can hear stuff that's happening before it even happened. They know that Jeep stopped at a door, at a house, at the end of the block, which, is 15, houses away. The dog heard it then. You hear it when it's only 5 houses down the street, right? So you have to try to be a little bit better at of some of almost the invisible stuff, but the very minor changes in that dog's body. And then the secret is correcting it, saying no, or diverting the dog's attention, have him doing something else. So teaching him that when somebody comes to the door, it's actually a good thing as opposed to a bad thing. And you're going to use maybe a treat to do that, or you're going to use a correction to correct the bad behavior. Both are valid depending on what kind of dog you have and the relationship you have with your dog and the type of tool you're using. All right. So understand that this is not training about which tool to use. It's understanding what it is you need to do, that you need to do some type of action when that very minor change starts. All right. So once you've got that, and this is where this question comes in, because the trainer that I was working with, he understands this, right? I was looking for the things a dog does, because pit bulls sometimes are tough. And this is where we kind of get into this discussion, where can a dog suddenly stop giving you the aggressive signals, right? Can that suddenly go away, especially if you've been working on it for a while? Right. So if you've been working on this dog's aggression by taking him to parks, say it's dog aggression, you take him into parks, you're taking him into situations where he's going to see another dog, PetSmart, Petco, all that kind of stuff, merely maybe just walking in the parking lot, 100 yards away from the door of PetSmart, because that's as close as you can get, right? Whatever that is you're at, and you're going, okay, there goes the tail, bam, no, sit. Right. As soon as the dog's tail begins to move, you're correcting that. Right. And so the question that was brought to me is that the aggression is still present. It's better, but the aggression is still present, but we no longer see the signals we used to see before the dog showed the aggression. And the question was, can that go away over time? And the answer is sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. Sometimes the signal goes away, but the aggression stays. And I think and so my question first was, is this dog a full pit bull? Because pit bulls are one of the few breeds, like a chow, that can attack and sometimes without any change in its behavior prior to the aggression. They have this unique thing that they could be standing there very calm with their mouth open, tail even kind of wagging a little bit, and then suddenly whack, and then get you without the tail rising, without even the growl, without an eyeball change, without the pupils changing, dilating, or the breathing change. With none of those things, a pit bull, a chow, and sometimes even Dalmatians can suddenly go from 0 to 100 with nothing in between. All right. So because he was telling me that there was a signal that now it's not there, I asked, is the dog completely full pit bull? And he did not think it was. And so that's probably a little bit where this kind of thing happened, which one of the 3 things that I gave him as possibilities is that you can see a dog that has the genetics of one breed or another kind of show a lot of the genetics of the one breed. Say the dog has lab, right? The dog's kind of goofy, kind of silly and really happy, loves to play with a tennis ball. That's probably the lab. And mix it with a pit bull, then you see some aggression that has to do with dogs and other things, and can be, sometimes associated with the pit bull breed. People that have pit bull breed, oh, my dog, what are you always saying? Pit bulls are aggressive. Well, I'm just telling you that those are most of the dogs we see. So let's just use this as an example. So the Labrador Retriever, fun, loving, and happy. And then, and again, I've seen some very nasty, aggressive Labrador Retrievers. So just to make sure and set the record straight. So let's just say, if we were to take the one typical behavior of a lab, which is fun and happy, and the aggressive nature of a possible aggressive pit bull, and they're bred together, you're going to see this kind of change back and forth. I'm happy, I'm aggressive. I'm happy, I'm aggressive. And you're going to see some of the signals that a lab might show prior to aggression, which would be hair standing up on its back and that kind of stuff. That's one I didn't talk about, or on its hindquarters kind of standing up. You will see that, but then as you're training it, the dog stops showing that, and now it just goes aggressive. Well, it's because now this dog has 2 types of genetics. And again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just telling you what I've seen is that suddenly the dog now acts more like the other breed than it does the fun-loving dog. It as the dog matures. So now the next question, how old is the dog? 3 to 4 years of age. Well, at 3 to 4 years of age, most dogs are changing from teenager to adult. And like us, kind of like my example was that you have a teenager, well, actually a preteen, right? The voice is a little higher and high, you know, and then the boy, the child, has a little bit higher pitched voice, and as he begins to grow into a teen, the voice gets a little bit deeper, and as he becomes an adult, he has a voice kind of like this. I don't have the lowest voice, but it's lower, definitely deeper than it was when I was a child, right? And so you have these things, these natural changes in human beings. And the same thing with the dog. You have the dogs that go from immature to mature, and that 3-year-old age range, 3 to 4 year is very coming of age. I just saw that my video froze there, so hopefully I didn't leave you guys. And so that could be one of the things that the prior things that the dog showed in regard to aggression when he's immature are going to be different than he shows when he's mature. Because as an immature dog, they're often more fearful, right? More of the aggression can be fear, not always, but sometimes can be more fear-based because they're young and scared. I have a couple kids right now that want me to turn on lights before they go to bed. Why? Because as young children, they're fearful. And as we get older, we're not fearful, or we have to act like we're not fearful, right? One of the two. So I'm not afraid of the dark. I walk around in the dark all day long. I turn on my iPhone flashlight every so often, but for the most part, I don't have fear of darkness. Not like I did when I was a kid. I was extremely afraid of the dark and saw little faces up near my ceiling all the time and was very scared. So same thing with the dog. The dog has a little bit more fearful nature in many cases as a puppy than it does as an adult. And so the signs that a dog shows as a puppy are going to become less and go away as the dog matures. So could it be that in the middle of this board and train, which is a few weeks long, that the maturity was changing, and based on the training, they sped up the maturity of the dog and became less fearful, and this became more rank or more aggressive? And again, another possibility. And the last one is, can you train a dog to stop doing something because of the training for aggression? And my answer to that is also yes. If the signal for a dog to become aggressive, and again, this is was my example, that if the signal is the dog raises its right paw, like into like a little pointer thing, as it becomes aggressive, which you can see, right? Sometimes dogs go, they raise a paw, or they do something with their legs, their feet, and then you're correcting the behavior at that moment. No. And you're maybe even a leash correction, and the dog puts the paw down. Good, right? And so the dog sees another dog, and this comes up, and no, dog puts the paw down. Good. So what can happen is the dog can be so conscious of, damn it, I get corrected every time I lift my right paw. And so now the dog stops lifting his right paw. Right? Because he gets corrected for lifting his right paw. He is also going to become aggressive, and that's one of the signals. But the dog has learned, no, every time I better not put my left paw, or my right paw, sorry. I better not put my right paw up because I'm going to get aggressive. And so the dog now suddenly goes without lifting its right paw, because in the training, we have essentially told the dog, stop lifting your right paw because we don't like it. Right. And so the dog just goes, the dog's obedient, not lifting his right paw, but he still has the aggression. All right. So it can be one of those three things. Am I missing one? It is possible. If any of you that are watching this that are dog trainers may have another issue that may be along those lines, or maybe have never even thought about this before, but understand that any of three of those things is actually a possibility. And then let's just say, what if the dog stops giving you the signals for aggression? Now what happens? Well, like a pit bull or an Akita, what you have to understand, or a chow, is that it is incumbent upon the trainer to teach the dog owner what situations, and to be reminded of the situations that this dog cannot be in. And if he is in those situations, when you need to get out, or when it is you need to correct before you even see anything happen. There may just simply an understanding that when A, B, and C happen, or just A and B happen, or just A happens, I need to tell the dog no, or make an about turn, or put the dog in an obedience position, like sit her down, because I know when I'm in these situations, he or she becomes aggressive. I know when I hear a skateboarder that the aggression is coming. So what actions do I need to take? It's not about whether I see the change in the dog's behavior, or I see the aggression, the barking, the growling, the snarling. No, it's when I'm in that situation, I know for a fact that his history is that 99.9% of the time, he or she becomes aggressive, right? So why wait and see, right? If we know 99.9% of the time the dog's going to do this, then just don't wait. You hear the skateboarder, you make a right turn, You make an about turn, you put the dog in a down, and you say stay as a skateboarder goes by, right? So you've gotten to the dog's head that when you hear skateboard noise, obedience is coming. And so now the dog turns its attention to you, has to become obedient because it has no choice. It knows that it has to heel, needs to do an about turn, and it needs a down, because that's what happens when I hear skateboard wheels, right? So that becomes the new normal, because you know when you hear that, you got to do that. Don't wait for the paw to raise. Don't wait for the hackles, the breathing change, the eyeball positioning to change, or the dilation of the eyeballs, and all the other stuff that I pointed out, ear twitching, all the kind of stuff. Don't wait for that. It's good to know that for training, and in most cases it works. But if for whatever reason during training one of those signals goes away and now you've lost it as a signal, and now simply the dog becomes aggressive, then get in the dog's head at the moment you're in that situation, or hear the thing that triggers the aggression, and put the dog into an obedience situation, so a dog understands that he's now in obedience and cannot become aggressive. It's not acceptable. It's not allowed. And now the dog's focus turns on to you. Wow. I hope that helped. That was a really good session. Whether you liked it or not, I loved it, because it's really cool stuff. I think I've again been doing this long enough, and now I have not been doing actually the hands-on stuff, more of the consulting and teaching and stuff like that. And so I get excited about this kind of stuff. All right, let's talk about the dogs coming from Ireland. And again, if you're watching the replay and you have comments, just feel free to comment. I can see that Chris is on, and the only comment I have from him right now is that a new dog. Yes, we got a new dog coming. His name's Charlie. He's coming from Northern Ireland. And let me go ahead and share my screen, and just kind of, at least I'll take you on the path so you can see some of the things that we have to get ready. It's not always just simply they just ship the dog, that kind of stuff. Of course not. There's a couple things that have to be done now that I did not have to do 10, 15, 20 years ago. Well, okay, 15, 20 years ago. In the last 10 years or so, it's gotten a little bit more difficult to get dogs here from Europe. You still can do it. There's no quarantine. Many people ask me that. What about a quarantine? No, there's no quarantine. That is the only place that still has that is Hawaii. I think they got rid of it. Anybody that's watching from Hawaii, let me know, because I know that there was talk that they were going to get rid of it, but I'm pretty sure. I haven't shipped a dog in to Hawaii in quite some time, but I know that was also not really a factor. Now, I know somebody got arrested, some movie star got his dog taken away because he took his dog in a private plane and didn't have the quarantine. So I know that happened, but I think that was a couple years ago. I think, and I could be wrong, that they've changed that. So I'm going to show you one of the things you need to do is you need to, on their end, they need to use a shipping, at least in Northern Ireland, they use a shipping company to take custody of the dog and get the dog onto the plane. Previous to that, the dog has to get a pet passport, what's called a pet passport, which is also kind of called a health certificate here, but it's a little bit more detailed over there in Europe. And it's literally a blue book that says pet passport on it. It has vaccinations, and the dog was seen, and the dog is healthy enough to travel. For some reason, my screen is not sharing. Let me try that again. All right. Ta-da! Come on, screen. Yes. And now on this end, what actually happened over the last several years, is that it's been necessary for me to get a broker to bring a dog down. So what I have to do is I have to get this thing, which is called an airway bill for the dog. And so what happens is the shipping company, which is Air Sea Forwarding Limited, Unit 4, Rosemount Avenue, Rosemount Business Park, Ballycaloon in Dublin. So they're using Aer Lingus to fly this dog. So they get this airway bill that they send to me with my information on it, the company name and my name that I'm going to pick it up, and all the information that needs to go there. That all has to be done correctly. If it's not, I'm going to have problems here in customs. So we have to make sure that everything is correct on this airway bill, or else we can't receive the dog. All right. The next thing, let me go ahead and click on this button here. Let me go back, and we need health export, the health certificate, and that is going to be hard to see. Sorry about that. So this seems very minor, but you have to have this Department of Agriculture, Environmental, and Rural Affairs, export dogs from Northern Ireland to United States of America, United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, and health certificate number. And this has to be done, obviously, by a licensed veterinarian that gives you all the information about the dog, his identification, his tattoo, and the identifier that is in his skin. And then all the other information about where the dog comes from and where it's going to go, and blah, 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 blah. And then it has to be stamped, official veterinarian stamp, right? And then signed by everybody. Barry Palmer, I met him. You can see a video interview I did with him years and years ago. It's in the video archives of our Facebook page. But he works at Vets for Pets in Lisburn, in the Sprucefield Shopping Center. I like that they put the E on the end of center. All right, so there's that. That has to be done. And what else? There's one other thing. Then they send me a form that I have to fill out that I don't have here, that I can't show you right now. But well, I haven't got to the broker yet. Let's stick with what it is I need: X-rays and medical. Oops, went to the wrong thing. So from Barry, they share a document here which shows me the X-rays. So I want to make sure and check out the X-rays. Did that work? Nope. And so what he'll do is he sends me in Google Drive the pictures of the dog's X-rays, and they'll pop up here pretty quickly. Oop, my phone's ringing. Oh no. All right, so I take a look at the X-rays and want to make sure before I get the dog here that the X-rays actually look good. These are his elbow and his wrist to make sure there's no arthritis, right? And then here's another elbow, and I see the dog's name is on there and his ID and his date of birth. That's really important because we have seen dogs that come from other countries like Germany and the Slovak Republic and Belgium that simply they have one set of X-rays for every dog in the country of Belgium. And they're the best X-rays possible, and every dog gets those same X-rays, right? So you want to make sure that the X-rays are actually of the dog you're getting, and there is a different look at that particular arm. And Barry's really good at taking these X-rays. I've seen some really crappy X-rays, but these X-rays look really good. You want to make sure that ball is seated into the socket, and you want to take a line. You can take a piece of paper and just make sure that straight line across from this tip of this part of the socket, this top, that more of the ball is in. So it's a pretty easy one, right? You would be able to see some space here or something like that. That wouldn't be good. So we don't want to see that. Uh-oh, I can't get rid of the thing here. Hello. There we go. And then, of course, hips. Let's take a look at the hips just to make sure. So same thing. You just want to make sure that they're seated well, right, all the way in. It might be a little bit, but if, again, you take that piece of paper and go from here to here, you make sure that more than half of the ball is in that socket. Again, you want really clear X-rays that you can see. And then you take a look at the other stuff. You want to make sure there's not too much, poop in the dog's tract here, and just everything else looks good and healthy. You look at each one of these vertebrae to make sure there's not anything going on there, and then there's good space, and there's nothing that kind of just stands out as far as being a inflammation or something that you need to be concerned about, especially closer to the tail, because that's where a lot of the problems can start, right there next to the rump of the dog in relationship to the tail. And so you just look at all those X-rays. So that's the next thing. And then what else here? And so what do I do? So, and I think there's one other document that I get, but I'm going to go ahead and come back to my screen here. And so then on my end, so I get all this stuff sent to me so I can see it. I see that they've done everything that they need to do on their end. So the dog has all the proper documentation and paperwork. And then, hey, Gina, glad to see you. I hope you saw my earlier talk about aggressive dogs. If not, I'm sure you'll watch the replay. I got very excited during that training. It was a really good question that was brought to me, as you may or may not know. All right. So what I do is I look at the X-rays, of course. I kind of examine them and make sure that they look good. I also make sure that all the other documents are filled out properly. All the names are proper. My name is listed on there, addresses, phone numbers, everything's correct. And then I contact a broker. So the broker that I contact is Flegenheimer. Flegenheimer? No, wait. Hold on. I'm going to find the right one. I don't want to give the wrong name. Hold on. I had a previous one, and now I have these Flegenheimer. Yeah, Flegenheimer. Flegenheimer is a great company. So if you ever need a broker to bring anything, dogs, furniture, cars, Flegenheimer is the place to go. And I did not have to use to. Is that a good sentence? I don't think so. I didn't have to use to. Sorry, I just love laughing at myself. So here you can see the logo here, Flegenheimer. There's their phone number, 310-322-4366. Fantastic company. The previous company I had, they were good too, but not nearly as good as Flegenheimer. They get everything done. There's so much that has to be done for this stupid dog to get here. It used to be that I would just go and pick up the dog and go to customs with the paperwork, and they would clear it, and I would go and get the dog. Well, customs is going to be another story, which you're going to find out later. But Flegenheimer takes care of all the paperwork. You send this all to them. They make sure and get it all documented properly. You got to pay them like $300 to do all this for you, and make sure that everything's in place so that when I get there, that I can just pick up the dog. It used to be that I'd have to go down there with all this paperwork, sit around and deal with some other stuff, which I'll talk about in just a second. But they get much of the issues that can come up when you come and get a dog done with the paperwork, and make sure that everything is in place for the dog to arrive. And so this is an old email. It's not the correct one, but all the forms and things, you check with them, make sure they have everything. They check and double check that you have everything. They contact the company that's flying the dog in, and everybody is on the same page. And that way there's less chance that the dog cannot be picked up. And that is scary, right? When it's starting to get late and everybody's starting and customs is starting to close, and the shipping place, if I've gotten dogs in Orange County, which they close at like 10 o'clock, and you don't have everything done by the time they're getting ready to close, the dog goes nowhere. The dog just has to stay in the crate in the warehouse, and and you get scary. That's not had to happen to me yet, but I've come close, and it's been very stressful when you've paid, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a dog and you can't get it. It's very stressful. So the broker has alleviated some of the stress that has to do with that, and now I only have to deal with the shipping people there at the airport and customs. Now, those are do you have time? Do you have time to talk? You got people that are working at a facility that these airlines, and I'm telling you, it doesn't care whether it's been Lufthansa, British Airways, Air France, Lingus, who I'm going to be dealing with this time, Delta, America. It doesn't matter. The people that work in the warehouse are different people. They have no interest in my happiness. They have no interest in the dog's happiness. They could care less. They are just a pain. And you'll be standing there waiting in line, and then a trucker will come in who they see every day, because they see these truckers. They come in picking up their loads all the time, and they go, "Hey, Fred, how's your wife?" And all of a sudden they turn from angry, miserable person to happy person. And then this trucker who comes in just gets in front of you, and they got through all their paperwork and boop, boop, and they stamp it, and then they're off after they've talked about their vacation. They've talked about places they visited while they're on vacation, and each one of their individual kids and what each one of their 8 kids are doing. And then they go, "Oh, are you wanting something?" "Yes, I'm here to pick up a dog." "Oh, well, we'll be back with you." And then they go off to some room, and you don't see them again for another 45 minutes. And I am not even exaggerating. This is the truth. I have witnesses that have gone with me. I've been there in uniform with my police car. It does not matter. Maybe that's where it all started, that I went there with my police car. Maybe that they remember me from the years of being there with our police cars, picking up police dogs coming in from Europe. But that's one. Customs, another. I think they hire from the same pool, because the same angry people that are at the shipping place suddenly switch uniforms, get on a uniform, and now are at the customs place there in LAX behind this big piece of plate glass, and sitting there picking their nose, eating an apple and leaning against the partition there in the cubicle, and one arm resting on their gun, and sitting there chatting about God knows what, doing nothing. I know some people, well, maybe they're on their break. Well, then go somewhere else for your break. Don't stand there and just look at me. Somebody's got to be on duty, right? Is it every time over the last 5 or 6 years that I've shipped in up to probably 10 dogs, 15 dogs over the last couple of years, is that every time, no matter what time I go there, they're always on a 2.5-hour break? Is that possible? I don't think so. And then they have their sole job is to find what on the paperwork that they could point to be an issue that they have to call a supervisor who's an hour away because he's doing something else that has to now come in and give his approval. Every time there has been something that he goes, "Oh no, that's no big deal," and they stamp it. I know it was nothing, because I'm going through a professional broker that I just paid $300 to go through the paperwork. But yet they'll find, well, that one corner is folded in the wrong spot, and so we need you to go back and get an unfolded piece of paper. But I'm again, I would love to tell you that this is all a made-up story, but it is not. What my goal is today is to go down there and go to the place where I pick up my dog, to have the paperwork ready, to have them stamp the paperwork and say, go to customs. I go to customs. I go to the window. The guy goes, hey, happy to see you. Stamps the paperwork. I go back and pick up my dog. That would be perfect. That would be an ideal situation. That has never never happened. And I cannot wait. So we're going to be on, and I'll be kind of keeping you up to date the best I can. It gets kind of hectic, gets a little bit nervous. I'm taking my kids for the first time, so I'm going to be down there with 4 kids while I'm picking up this dog and dealing with customs and the shipping company. And we'll see what happens. So there you go. So that is part 1 of my journey to pick up this dog, and I hope that you found it as entertaining as I did to tell the story. But I can see that some people clicked off. I'm hoping the people click off don't work at either one of those agencies, and I'm sorry, but that's just my experience. I've never experienced anything different. All right, so it looks like it's about time for me to get ready to go down there. The dog doesn't arrive until 1800. And so I got a few hours to go, but I got to make sure and have some things prepared and then there's going to be about 2 hours of traffic in LAX at this time. But there's no way around it because that's what time the dog arrives, and I have to drive down there in the middle of the highest traffic time of the day. And so there you go. All right. I hope you found this interesting. And again, if you have any questions about anything that we do here, if you have any topics, and I did see a topic from one person, we're going to put that together and make sure to have that for you. And I did see that, and I think it was Irelan who had it about her dog, who happens to be a pit bull also. So we have a few pit bull questions. And so we'll be addressing that one. And maybe something that I talked about today was associated with what that question was. I got to go back and look at that question. I can't remember it right off the bat, but it has to do with aggression towards children, I think. And some of what I talked about will apply to that particular answer. All right, that is it. I hope you have a great day, and make sure and stay tuned. If you have people that like dogs and like dog stories and the dog stuff we talked about, please feel free to share this with them, this Facebook Falco Canine Academy. And if you liked anything that we talked about, if you just give us 5 stars, that would be fantastic. I would appreciate that. And if you can't give us 5 stars, please message me and let me know what it is that you don't like. That way I can think about fixing it, or just say I appreciate your opinion and not. But at least we can have that discussion, right? So feel free to go ahead and just write up there. It's really easy. Just click on the 5 stars, and then if you feel like it, write something really nice about myself or Gina or Derek or somebody, Carlene, and write something in there nice about our company. All right, that is it. Share, like, subscribe, and I will see you at the next one. All right, take care. Talk to you later. Bye.